There comes a moment in every life when something within you begins to stir quietly at first, like a whisper beneath the surface of your thoughts. It is a profound and undeniable restlessness that you can no longer ignore, a subtle unease that permeates your quietest hours and demands your conscious awareness in ways that feel both entirely foreign and deeply familiar. You might find yourself sitting alone in a crowded room, surrounded by the noise of the world, yet feeling completely detached from the superficial reality unfolding around you, pulled inward by an invisible gravitational force that insists you pay attention to the depths of your own mind. This is not a punishment, nor is it a sign that your life is falling apart, even though the sheer weight of this internal shift and the fear of the unknown might desperately try to convince you otherwise. Instead, this is the profound initiation into the most important journey you will ever undertake, the journey of individuation, a concept masterfully articulated by the brilliant psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who understood that the human psyche is infinitely more vast, complex, and purposeful than our limited everyday consciousness could ever fully comprehend. You have spent years, perhaps decades, constructing a life based on the expectations of others, the demands of society, and the protective mechanisms of your own ego, building a fortress of habits, routines, and carefully curated identities designed to keep you safe from the unpredictable chaos of the unconscious mind. Yet, despite all your efforts to maintain control, despite the endless ways you attempt to distract yourself with external noise, with endless scrolling, with relentless busyness, with shallow entertainments, and with the exhausting pursuit of external validation, that quiet whisper beneath the surface of your thoughts refuses to be silenced. It is the voice of your authentic self, the voice of the soul, and it carries a message that finds you only when you are truly ready to receive it, even if your conscious mind feels entirely unprepared and terrified of what that message might entail. The psyche operates on a timeline that defies the rigid, linear expectations of the ego, waiting with infinite patience for the exact moment when the structures of your life have become too small, too restrictive, and too inauthentic to contain the magnitude of who you are meant to become. You may have noticed the symptoms of this impending awakening manifesting in your daily life through a pervasive sense of unexplained unease, a lingering feeling that something fundamental is missing, even when, by all outward appearances, you have achieved the goals you once believed would bring you lasting happiness and fulfillment. You might recognize this inner stirring in the form of repeating negative patterns or conflicts in life, finding yourself trapped in the same unfulfilling relationships, the same frustrating career dynamics, or the same self-sabotaging behaviors, wondering why the universe seems intent on forcing you to relive the same painful lessons over and over again. Carl Jung taught us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, meaning that these recurring struggles are not random instances of bad luck or meaningless suffering, but rather intentional catalysts orchestrated by your own deeper nature to force you to look inward and confront the fragmented pieces of your own identity. The tendency to distract oneself with external noise is a universal human defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to drown out the urgent demands of the inner world, because turning inward requires us to face the very things we have spent a lifetime trying to avoid, to deny, and to repress. We run from our own depths because we are terrified of what we might find hiding in the dark corners of our minds, terrified of the unresolved pain, the unacknowledged desires, the buried grief, and the overwhelming guilt that we have carefully swept under the rug of our conscious awareness in order to survive in a world that demands constant productivity and superficial perfection. But the paradox of avoidance is a cruel and inescapable psychological truth. The more fiercely you try to run from the truth of your own internal experience, the more power you inadvertently surrender to it, allowing the repressed elements of your psyche to mutate and grow in the darkness until they eventually inevitably burst forth into your waking life as symptoms of anxiety, depression, burnout, or profound existential despair. You cannot outrun your own shadow, that rich, complex, and often terrifying domain of the unconscious, where all the unacceptable, uncivilized, and rejected parts of your personality reside in silent exile, waiting for the day when you will finally have the courage to turn around and face them with compassion rather than condemnation. The shadow is not inherently evil, nor is it something to be eradicated or conquered, but rather it is a reservoir of immense untapped vitality, creativity, and raw power that has been locked away simply because it did not fit into the narrow, sanitized version of yourself that you believed you had to present to the world in order to be loved and accepted. Confronting the Jungian shadow requires a monumental act of bravery, a willingness to strip away the comforting illusions of your own righteousness and perfection, and an unflinching commitment to acknowledge the darkest, most uncomfortable aspects of your own nature without immediately collapsing into shame or self-hatred. When you finally stop running, when you finally drop the exhausting armor of your persona and allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of your own humanity, you begin the sacred work of integration, the process of bringing the scattered, exiled fragments of your soul back into a state of coherence and wholeness. This is the moment when the message that has been patiently waiting for you finally begins to articulate itself with crystal clarity, revealing that the profound restlessness you have been experiencing was never a symptom of brokenness, but rather the urgent, undeniable demand of your own psyche pushing you toward a more authentic and expansive existence. As you begin to listen to this internal whisper, as you choose to honor the truth of your own experience rather than suppressing it, you will likely begin to notice a remarkable shift in the way you interact with the world around you, a phenomenon that Carl Jung referred to as synchronicity, those deeply meaningful coincidences that seem to defy all logical explanation and yet carry a profound sense of purpose and direction. Synchronicities are not mere random accidents of a chaotic universe, but rather they are the external reflections of your own internal alignment, the tangible evidence that your conscious awareness is finally beginning to harmonize with the deeper currents of the unconscious, creating a bridge between the inner and outer worlds. You might encounter exactly the right person at exactly the right time, stumble upon a book that perfectly articulates the very thoughts you have been struggling to put into words, or experience a sudden, inexplicable opening of a door that had previously been firmly shut against all your most desperate efforts. These synchronicities are the universe's way of confirming that you are on the right path, that you are no longer swimming against the current of your own destiny, but rather allowing yourself to be carried by the profound wisdom of your own soul toward a destination that you could never have consciously planned or anticipated. However, stepping into this flow requires a radical departure from the way you have previously lived your life. It demands that you abandon the illusion of absolute control and surrender to the inherent mystery and unpredictability of the individuation process. You must be willing to let go of the life you have planned in order to embrace the life that is waiting for you, a transition that often involves a period of profound disorientation, grief, and mourning for the identities, relationships, and belief systems that you must inevitably leave behind as you outgrow the restrictive confines of your former self. This period of transition is often accompanied by a deep sense of fear, a natural and entirely understandable reaction to the dissolution of the known and the terrifying vastness of the unknown. But it is precisely in this space of uncertainty that true transformation becomes possible. The hidden cost of delaying difficult decisions, of clinging desperately to the familiar even when it is actively destroying your spirit, is a slow and agonizing starvation of the soul, a gradual draining of your vital life force as you pour all of your energy into maintaining a facade that no longer serves any genuine purpose. You know, deep down in the marrow of your bones, that you cannot continue to live divided, that you cannot continue to play a role in a script that you did not write, and that the internal pressure building within you is rapidly reaching a critical mass that will eventually demand a massive and potentially destructive release if you do not find a way to consciously channel it into constructive growth. Delay is not patience. Delay is the ego's desperate attempt to maintain the status quo, a manifestation of the fear that you are not strong enough, wise enough, or worthy enough to handle the profound responsibility of becoming your true self. But the urgency you feel inside is not pushing you toward chaos. It is the psyche's deep demand for coherence, a desperate plea from the deepest parts of your being to stop pretending, to stop hiding, and to finally step into the light of your own authentic existence. The energy that is currently trapped in your avoidance, in your resistance, and in your endless rationalizations is the exact same energy that, once released and integrated, will fuel your transformation and propel you toward a life of profound meaning, purpose, and unshakable inner peace. You must realize that the message finding you right now, in this exact moment of your life, is not a random occurrence, but a perfectly timed intervention orchestrated by your own unconscious to wake you up from the hypnotic trance of your daily routines and remind you of the immense, unexplored potential that lies dormant within your own mind. To ignore this call is to condemn yourself to a life of quiet desperation, to a lingering sense of regret that will haunt you until your final days, whispering of the life you could have lived if only you had possessed the courage to answer the call when it came. The path of individuation is not a journey for the faint of heart. It requires a relentless commitment to self-discovery, a willingness to dive deep into the murky waters of your own psychology, and the resilience to confront the terrifying monsters that guard the hidden treasures of your soul. But the reward for undertaking this monumental task is nothing less than the reclamation of your own life, the profound and enduring joy that comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you stand for, and what you are uniquely meant to contribute to the tapestry of human existence. When you respond to this urgency with attention rather than resistance, when you choose to lean into the discomfort and explore the shadows with an open heart and a curious mind, you begin to reorganize the very foundations of your psychological reality, shifting from a state of fragmentation and inner conflict to a state of profound integration and wholeness. You learn to listen to the subtle cues of your body, to decode the symbolic language of your dreams, and to recognize the hidden wisdom contained within your darkest emotions, transforming your fear into courage, your guilt into compassion, and your deep, unexplained restlessness into a powerful catalyst for authentic action. The message has found you because you are finally ready to hear it, even if you do not yet feel fully equipped to understand its massive implications. The readiness is not about having all the answers or possessing a foolproof plan for the future, but simply about having the willingness to take the very first step into the unknown. It is about acknowledging that the life you have been living is no longer sufficient, that the old ways of coping and surviving are no longer working, and that the time has come to boldly step out of the shadows and claim the full, magnificent and terrifying truth of your own being. Do not turn away from the whisper, do not drown it out with more noise, and do not let the fear of what you might lose blind you to the incomprehensible beauty of what you are about to gain. The time for hiding is over, the time for pretending is past, and the profound, unavoidable truth of your own existence can no longer wait for you to feel completely safe before it demands your full and undivided participation in the grand, unfolding masterpiece of your own life. When you respond to this urgency with attention rather than resistance, you do not just survive the transition, you master it, learning to act with greater awareness to make decisions that reflect your whole self, ensuring that every step you take moving forward is profoundly aligned with the deepest, most authentic truth of who you really are.